Hello, everyone, and welcome to this next edition of HSE People in Conversation with. Today, I'm joined by Hugh Maxwell. Hugh has worked across more than 50 countries and industries ranging from mining, manufacturing, and construction to offshore, energy, infrastructure, and high-risk operations. Along the way, he's continually challenged himself to learn, adapt, and embrace new opportunities rather than becoming comfortable with past success. In this session, Hugh is going to share how continual professional reinvention, not simply changing jobs, has enabled him to move between consultancy, executive leadership, international assignments, mentoring, public speaking, professional institutions, and now into one of the UK's most exciting clean energy organisations as head of HSEQ at Rolls-Royce SMR. Hello, Hugh. Welcome.
Hi, Rebecca. Always nice to speak to you, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to share today.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm going to kick off with a pretty big question, but one that I'm sure you've got some great answers to. Why does reinvention matter more today than ever before?
I thought you'd catch me with a good, strong question to start with, Rebecca. And I think it's one that's relevant not just to myself, but to everybody. Here I am, sort of in the latter years of my own career, and if nothing else, I think the past 3 to 4 years, reinvention has been very high on my own agenda. But I still think if we don't reinvent ourselves every so often and look at where we are in our actual careers along the way, then standing still is really the biggest career risk that all of us can face. We're all seeing a massive change in the rate of um, acceptance of things like AI, new technologies. There's issues out there like the geopolitical uncertainty, sustainability, and a lot of changing expectations in terms of work, workforce expectations, new business models, and really the expertise that we're expected to have. And I think there's less time for us to actually, it's like with the football managers. They're in a role now. They used to be in the role job for life, but now if they don't actually get up and function in a couple of months, they're out the door. If it's Nottingham Forest, it's even faster. A local club to us, who one a good family member supports. But I think we as professionals owe it to ourselves not to stand still, to reinvent ourselves, to look at what's out there on the horizon, not just current but impending. And this reinvention for me, it's not about abandoning our principles, who we are, what our beliefs are, but it's about continuously building on our own experiences and remaining curious enough to learn something new that actually arms us with more skills going forward. As you said earlier, I've been quite fortunate to be internationally in different industries, different countries, and different leadership roles. And I'll be quite honest with you, a lot of these transitions haven't been easy. I've had to move out of my comfort zone at first, and then obviously re-establish myself, reaffirm myself, build that trust, build that core knowledge. But each of these things have been worth the pain because they've made me a better leader going forward. And they've actually helped to enhance the way I look at different issues and different problems. And also, it's allowed me to actually reshape myself in many ways, taking away key learnings from different people. And key learnings doesn't mean somebody who's smarter or brighter than you, because everybody's got something to bring to the party. I've learned more from artisans, I've learned more from labourers in different environments, from miners in Africa, than I could probably learn from any textbook in terms of workers done compared to workers imagined. And as you said, most recently, I've been fortunate enough to move into the Rolls-Royce SMR role, which to me is another really exciting chapter, not just in my life, but in the UK energy, clean energy sector. And after more than 3 decades in safety leadership, I'd say I probably feel as vital, revitalised and enthusiastic as I've ever been. And again, this is taking myself out of the comfort zone, but give me an opportunity to learn, but also to contribute and grow. So I think an important thing about this reinvention, it's a thing to stay, it's a dynamic, it's something that's going to be continuous for each and all of us. I think a lot of that comes down to a mindset that I think each and every one of us needs to develop going forward.
Absolutely. And with all this experience and all the, different industries and countries and communities you've worked in, you are now very widely known in the industry as a mentor to those entering HSE and some of them, who are already quite established. But how has mentoring benefited you and your own development?
Well, a lot of people say it, excuse me, and I truly do mean it. Every day is a school day. And there's ways we can learn at work in a work environment. But I'm a big, as you know, Rebecca, I'm very people centric in terms of my approach. I believe that people aren't the problem. I always see people as a solution. And I think if we can get the best out of people and allow people to actually apply themselves and be the best version of themselves they want to be, give them the skills and let them use them skills in a way that means something to them, you can learn an awful lot. And having started a lot of relationships internationally where I don't like the term mentor and mentee because I see it as a partnership. Because what tends to happen is you build that trust, you build that relationship, you build that bond, it becomes a two-way thing. So instead of you think that you're doing the mentoring, part of that session actually reverses it and you're actually becoming mentored as well. So I said every day is a school day, you can learn from each other, you can share with each other. And in some respects, particularly me now, so I'm 62, at the older stages, obviously the younger generations I've been fortunate to engage with and to mentor with are much more au fait with the new technologies, the digital tools, different ways of thinking. And this has helped me to reshape myself in terms of my continual learning rather than sort of one of the big dangers is sometimes you get a guy like myself with 30 odd years experience and sometimes you can fall into the trap of not having 30 odd years experience, but having 3 or 4 years experience, which you pay forward each year. I've always tried to avoid that. I've also tried to make sure they've got more skills coming on and moving each year. And I think that's one of the dynamics you develop through the mentoring is you try not to stay transfixed in where you were. And it may be just a little quip or something that you discuss in the mentoring session that gives you a slight appetite to go and actually fish for more knowledge in another area. So I think mentoring's reminded me that leadership's not measured about what you achieve personally. It's really measured more about the success of the people you help to develop and seeing them grow. And just this year alone, there's at least a dozen people who I can actually mention who've actually excelled, who've moved further in their career journey as a result of it. And that in itself, as well as satisfying me, it's helped me to move forward in my journey to where I am now. And nothing gives you greater satisfaction than actually seeing somebody who've actually mentored themselves become the leader. Because really that shows you're actually not just contributing for now, there's a legacy there, not just for yourself, but they're going to be a legacy in their own right. They're going to actually pay it forward to other people as well. So there's an awful lot to be said for mentoring, not just in terms of your own development, but in terms of the ongoing development of risk and HSE management globally.
Fantastic. And I love the fact that you also benefit from it. So, many people see it as just, helping people who don't have as much knowledge and insight, but actually they have got some knowledge and insight that you might not have and that they can share as well. So it's great to hear that it's sort of mutually beneficial for everyone involved.
Very much so, yeah. And you get from a diverse range of industries because I think a lot of us, we do get somewhat blinkered in terms of thinking that the problems we're facing in our work environment are unique to us. But it's surprising how common some of these issues and problems are in different environments. And sometimes by just picking up on that point with somebody from, say, an insurance background or a non-operational background, their approach might be slightly different to yours, but it may give you actually some threads, an opportunity to actually apply something different, which benefits you in terms of coming up with a solution or a bespoke solution to your problems. And then again, when you're actually mentioning somebody else a few years down the road, it's surprising how often a similar problem may arise. And say, "Oh, but you should say that." A few years ago, one of the other mentees had a similar issue, and sometimes sharing this, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say necessarily best practice, but sharing the solutions that we've been able to develop and reshape sometimes can make sure that we actually all look at things differently and try and solve the problem without having to go through the same pain barrier.
Absolutely. And everyone wins. So it
Yeah,
can't be a bad thing at all.
not at all.
Obviously, we all experience ups and downs in our professional lives. How do you think we can turn setbacks and obstacles into career defining moments?
I think that's a really important question. I think that's something that when you're in your earlier stages of your career, I think people see ups and downs. I won't say failures. They see ups and downs as a personal injustice or a personal trait. I mean, I don't like the word failure, but to me, it's a learning opportunity. None of us are complete, and you get far more benefit from actually not achieving something. I know it sounds painful, I know it sounds wrong, but not achieving something, not something going smoothly, you'll take far away by having going to back, and sometimes going back to the drawing board, revisiting it with a fresh pair of eyes. Why didn't we achieve what we wanted to achieve in the first place? Where were the gaps? Was it a knowledge gap? Was it a skills gap? Was it a communication gap? And I think the more we're able to accept this as an opportunity to improve and to go back and reflect, and this is why I like project management. One of the key stages of project management is not just the bit of patting ourselves on the back for success. It's actually saying to yourself, well, what could we do better next time? And at first, a lot of people, when they're new to this approach, particularly, I mean, myself as well, I remember the first time I had an audit, an external audit, was from a company. We were actually part of the old ICI, and we had an audit, and they came in and they audited us against HSE and quality. Well, this was in the early 1990s when people just didn't look at it in this depth. And I thought we were up there with the best. I took it personally because I put the systems in as the HSE manager. And I thought on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being world class, 1 being low maturity, we were coming out with 2s, 3s, which wasn't bad, but I was deflated. And I thought, well, hang on a minute, we're not perfect. Then I put my pride to one side. My wife had a chat with me, as you know, usually your best sort of leveler can sometimes be your wife, who's not really a technical expert, but she'll say to this to you. And I thought, well, hang on a minute, this isn't a bad thing. This is a journey. And if we're achieving all 5s and everything, we're successful, then where are we going to go in terms of achieving sustainable performance? And I think people recognise this now, that these ups and downs are career defining moments, because it's not what you actually have to accept, it's how you deal with it. And it's not a major setback. It's something that's enabling you to actually learn from it and actually move forward. So I think while it initially felt like a failure or felt like a disappointment, these are really opportunities to redirect yourself, to refocus yourself, and to bounce back stronger. There's a term they used to use on Soccer AM, which I really like, bounce back ability. Right. And I think as any strong risk or HSE professional of whatever stage of our career, some people call it resilience, but I think resilience is a step before. Bounce back ability is learning from the minor setbacks, but coming back stronger, reinforcing it and using it to take levels to higher extremes. So I think reliance and bounce back ability are key traits that we should always try to develop. And again, it's something I do try and promote through a lot of my mentoring as well. Don't see it as a setback, see it as an opportunity to make things even stronger and learn from it.
Fantastic. And I love the Soccer AM reference there. I think that's really, really relevant. And it's great to hear that, yes, it may not work out as you want first time and things don't always run smoothly, but there are good things to get from that. And, you can benefit still and learn and develop. And, if you weren't going through that, you wouldn't have those opportunities. So there is sort of light at the end of the tunnel, even when it seems very dark and gloomy.
Very much so.
Do you have any sort of specific examples of, when you've had to, pull yourself out from, feeling that things aren't going right and turn things upside down and come out on top?
Sadly, far too many to share in this call, Rebecca. I think we have one call alone. The big one to me is the ultimate failure, where we've had loss of life or serious injuries. And sadly, I've had to deal with far too many fatalities, particularly in high-risk industries. The first fatality I had to deal with was actually in Chorus, Teesside, on the role as HSE director for Vesuvius. And one of our guys was relining a boss vessel, 32-year-old gentleman. And he was actually killed towards the end of that job. And it actually made me rethink, am I in the right? I mean, people talk about imposter syndrome and different things like this, but I thought, am I the right person for the job to turn this round? Nobody comes to, I've got two ethos in me, two ethics for me. Nobody comes to work to get hurt. And if it's not safe for my kids to do it, then why should somebody else's kids do it? Because ultimately that's who they are. And we all deserve to come to work safely and go home equally as safely. And that things like that make you rethink, am I the right person for the job at the right time? And also it makes you sometimes question, am I getting the right support from the management team? Now, this for me was a crossroad. I said, I was actually, I was in Fasico and we were taken over by Vesuvius in that April. I've been in that new job for less than a week. And my first active duty was actually in chorus at Teesside with the factory inspector, with the police. Because the
Wow.
first thing people want to do is make sure that there's no foul play going on. And I actually went home and said to my wife, is this the right job for me? And again, my sounding board said to me, well, it's your choice altogether. But, can you make a difference? So I had to, instead of being, I had to spend a few days in chorus with Teesside obviously with the team. We had good support, counselling for the family, but never bring back the sad loss of life we had with the gentleman concerned. But a test for me was how the actual management team itself responded. And I was flown out to Sweden for the senior management meeting. Got there just before midnight. My new chief executive and the operations VP were there. We sat down for an hour, and the point straight, they were as gutted as anybody. And they said, look, we just cannot kill people in our business. So this was around 2008, just before we had a major recession in 2009. These guys totally supported me in the launch of an initiative called Safety Breakthrough, where we basically totally shook up the way we managed health and safety within Vesuvius. And a lot of our people, similar to the gentleman concerned, were working in steel plants. And we actually turned away business because we felt the environments that some of our people working in weren't safe enough. And when you get that level of management commitment, that tells you that you've made the right decision. And that could have gone either way for me in terms of career changing. And that's why I stuck it with the business and helped to launch that program until 2017. And again, I sort of spent 31 years man and boy within Fasico and the Vesuvius environment. Not because I was in a comfort zone, because there was a rapid lot of changing. We were part of Burma Castrol, part of BP for different years. But there was lots of opportunity for me to grow and develop, and also to try and make a positive impact, and that being one of the big ones. So sometimes it's not nice, but when you can actually see the positive results and prevent these types of injuries, it shows you're actually achieving what we want to achieve in terms of protecting people and protecting workplaces.
That's it. That's it. Thank you for sharing that. That's yeah, it certainly puts things into perspective. I just want to go back on you're saying about, these companies being taken over and mergers and acquisitions and things like that. Does that affect your role as a safety professional within the business when there are changes like that?
Very much so. And I think this is why, in many respects, the modern risk and safety professional is going to be very much a change management agent, because it's important. Excuse me, a lot of businesses that take the business over want to really instill their own culture within the business. But the important thing is not to destroy all the positives you've got, and also try and maintain some status quo rather than allowing things to fall apart. So very much, as well as being an enabler, we've also got to try and serve as a stabilizer through this transition of change, and make sure we take the positives, build on whatever positives already there, try to actually align them with the expectations. And I've been both sides of the fence, having been taken over, but haven't been part of mergers and acquisitions of other businesses. And really, the important part is making people feel part of the process rather than feeling threatened, because straight away, people think straight away it's a takeover. We're going to downsize and get rid of people. Unfortunately, that does happen, but it's how it happens sometimes. And sometimes, I mean, for example, a couple of times when we're taken over, a lot of people decided to move out of the business, for example, for Seco being taken over by Vesuvius. And whilst at first it meant they were out of the comfort zone, it gave them new opportunities. Essentially, I've been sort of in that environment for nearly 31 years. Not many roles like that exist nowadays. So I think we've got to build this personal resilience into ourselves. We've got to be more prepared for this type of change, more sort of prepared for this type of turbulence, and in many respects, Rebecca, more selfish. This is why it comes back to us not just reinventing ourselves, but being in a position where we're prepared if this type of change comes our way, and not seeing it as a threat, but seeing it as an opportunity. Because I think that's the
Fantastic.
danger. We all see things as threats. They're not opportunities for us to go out there. And I said, I'm 62. Part of the reason I'm still in the game is because I'm still getting a buzz from it. Two, there's still a massive demand for some of the knowledge and experience I've got. A lot of people around my age group are actually retiring. There's a lot of opportunities for the youngsters to come through and to actually bloom sooner rather than later. And I'd say that's particularly the case after COVID as well. Now, after COVID, a lot of people were thrown into what a lot of people call the Great Resignation, where a lot of people decided to actually change career direction or to move out, retire early. But this created a lot of opportunities. And I don't always think that some of the people moving into these new roles were actually given as much support as they perhaps might have needed, which is why, in some respects, mentoring and coaching is so important to get that support from others who have perhaps been in your shoes or can perhaps share learnings that will benefit you. But equally important to try and shape things for yourself as well, because you know what floats your boat. You know what the things that motivate you in terms of your career, in terms of your career aspirations. So there are opportunities there, and really, in some respects, I said turning the risk to the opportunity, the threat to the opportunity side. Great time at the moment for many safety professionals to get out there and actually sell their skills and actually shape their career the way they want to going forwards.
Hugh, your positivity is, yeah, it's really amazing. It's just great to hear something positive and light in a time when it's quite difficult to find sometimes. I'm going to finish with just a question. What one piece of advice would you give to your younger self looking back now?
Right. I mean, I was always quite keen on developing myself. So I'd say forget about chasing the titles. Everybody wants to be, particularly in the younger generations nowadays, everybody wants to be top of the tree. They want to be the MD tomorrow. Don't chase your titles, chase learning, chase shaping yourself, not just for the position you're in now, but for that next position. Early in our careers, I think a lot of us, and we're all guilty. I had a young family when I got married. Early days got married, and the family came along quite early. So it was always looking for that salary straight away, always looking for that bit of success. So it was in the bank. But always remember that you're shaping yourself. It's a long game, it's a long ball game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So keep in mind the fact that um, equipping yourself with the right skills, not just technically, but also with the people skills and building relationships are really important. And remember that people remember not your title, they remember how you made them feel, how you impacted on them, what value you added. So if I was talking to my younger self, which I was, I'd still say keep staying curious and make sure that curiosity extends to others and influences others to try and be the version themselves they want to be. Keep learning and basically keep feeling that. I mean, one of the things I still do regularly, partly for CPD, but partly for myself, is say to myself, what have I really achieved this month? What have I done that's added value, not just to me, but for others this month as well? Because I think going forward, if we don't start, if we don't keep doing that, we're standing still, we're stagnating. So I think the important, and then again, if there's things you haven't achieved this month, I mean, it sounds really sad, but I still sit down and put myself an annual plan in terms of what I'd like to achieve. Sometimes over ambitious. Now I'm going to fail this year because of changing the new job. One of the things I wanted to do this year was knock a few books out. Originally, I wanted to write the first book, but when I put the ideas down for books, I actually put about 10 different areas that I'd like to share. Now, these are things I'm going to actually work towards over time. But every time I think I'm going to sit down and start writing it, another chapter comes along, Rebecca. Hence this Rolls-Royce experience, which is great. So, and I'm channeling my energy in there, which hopefully will play back later. But I think, keep curious, keep developing yourself, keep learning, but do it in a way that's not just preparing you for the next step, but the step after that. Because what I tend to find is we all think we're going to get that next job that we want. But when you tend to find these opportunities come along when you least expect them. So I think it's really important to stay curious, but also stay prepared. And also, I'd always say, don't just have a plan A, have a plan B and a plan C. Because you'd be surprised how many times in my career where something's come along, even the health and safety bit came along when I first thought the health and safety role was an old man's job. Because my predecessor was a quite experienced person in the business. He was put into that role partly because of his knowledge more than anything else to share in the business. And I thought, well, I'm not ready to sort of put the pipe and slippers on at sort of 35, 40. But when I realized how much was there, particularly in terms of environment sustainability, I realized that, there's a lot here for me to actually not just learn, but also to contribute towards. So I think it's, staying hungry, staying curious, and shaping things for you the way you want them to be, realizing that sometimes things aren't always green on the other side, but that doesn't mean you can't use that as a stepping stone towards something bigger.
Fantastic. I mean, we could sit here for hours, to be honest with you. I think you've still got so much more to say, and hopefully, we can come back and you'll join me again another time, especially if there's a book to discuss. We'd love to find out more about that.
Rebecca, with pleasure, my friend. It's always great to speak to you, and the work that you and the HSE people do is absolutely fantastic. And I think it's so important that safety professionals recognise and use the likes of your media to actually not just to grow, but to help shape them and shape their thoughts in terms of what their needs and aspirations are. So thank you for all the great work you and the team do.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who's joined us today and watch this space. I'm sure Hugh will be back soon, and I'll be back soon with another HSE People in Conversation with. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Rebecca. Bye bye.